Are you tired of reading English and understanding it, but still struggling to follow real world conversations and natural flow? Welcome back to In English with Lisa. This listening practice series is crafted precisely for advanced learners like you. Every unique story you're about to hear is written and read by me, ensuring you get a real human voice and a natural rhythm, not a synthesized one. What deeper insights will you gain about spoken English from today's narrative? Get ready to refine your ear and expand your expression. Sunset on the Santorini Shore. Chapter 1, Fractured Horizons. The ferry to Santorini pitched on the azure waves of the Aegean, but Eleni Vasilis barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the stark white buildings that crowned the distant cliffs like a dusting of snow against the volcanic rock. She had come to escape, to put an ocean between herself and the disaster that her 3-year relationship with Nicholas had become. 6 weeks since she discovered the messages on his phone, and still the pain felt as fresh as an open wound. First time? A voice beside her broke through her thoughts. Eleni turned to find a man about her age, mid-30s, with olive skin and dark curls ruffled by the sea breeze. His accent was distinctly American. "No," she replied, tucking a strand of her wavy brown hair behind her ear. "I'm Greek, actually. My family moved to London when I was 12, but we used to visit the islands every summer. This is my first time back in almost 15 years, though." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. There was something in his eyes, a familiar wariness that matched her own. "I'm Alexander," he said, extending his hand. "Alexander Demetriou." "Eleni Vasilis." His handshake was firm but gentle. "Greek name," he observed. "Greek father, British mother. You?" "Greek father, American mother." He smiled. "Though I grew up mostly in Boston." The ferry lurched, and Eleni gripped the railing. In the distance, Santorini grew larger, its whitewashed buildings gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Why Santorini?" Alexander asked after a moment. Eleni hesitated. "Beauty, distance, a place to think." She glanced at him. "You?" "My grandmother lived here before she emigrated. I grew up on her stories of Santorini sunsets." He paused, then added quietly, "And I needed somewhere to finish my novel." "You're a writer." "Trying to be." His smile was self-deprecating. "Currently on sabbatical from teaching literature to uninterested college freshmen." The conversation flowed easily as the ferry approached the harbor. By the time they disembarked, Eleni had learned that Alexander was staying in Oia on the northern tip of the island, while she had booked a small villa in Emerovigli, midway along the caldera. "Maybe I'll see you around," Alexander said as they prepared to part ways at the port. There was a hint of hope in his voice. "It's a small island," Eleni replied with a small smile. "I'm sure our paths will cross." They did, sooner than either expected. That evening, as Eleni settled into a small taverna perched on the cliff edge of Emerovigli to watch her first Santorini sunset, she spotted Alexander at a table across the terrace. Their eyes met, and after a moment's hesitation, he picked up his glass of wine and walked over. "Is this seat taken?" he asked. She gestured for him to sit, "Apparently by you." As the sun began its descent towards the horizon, casting golden light across the caldera, they talked. Alexander spoke of his novel, a story of diaspora and return, and the creative block that had plagued him for months. Eleni found herself telling him about her job as an architect, specializing in restoration of historical buildings. She didn't mention Nicholas, and he didn't speak of whatever shadow lingered behind his eyes. There would be time for that. For now, it was enough to sit with a stranger who somehow didn't feel strange, watching the sky transform from blue to gold to crimson. My grandmother was right about the sunsets, Alexander murmured as the last sliver of sun slipped below the horizon, leaving a palette of pinks and purples in its wake. Worth coming all this way for? Eleni asked. His eyes met hers, warm and contemplative. I'm beginning to think so. Chapter 1 Comprehension Questions. Number 1. What is Eleni's profession? A. Writer. B. Architect. C. Teacher. The correct answer is B. Architect. Number 2. Where did Alexander grow up? A. Greece. B. London. C. Boston. The correct answer is C. Boston. Number 3. What is the relationship between Eleni and Nicholas? A. They are married. B. They were in a 3-year relationship that ended. C. They are colleagues. The correct answer is B. They were in a 3-year relationship that ended. Chapter 2 Shared Skies. The next 3 days passed in a rhythm that felt both novel and somehow familiar. Elenia explored the winding pathways of Fira in the mornings, sketching the distinctive architecture of the island in a notebook she'd brought. Her fingers itched to capture the unique structures, buildings carved directly into the volcanic rock, smooth curves, and stark lines that seemed to flow organically from the landscape. Each afternoon she would find herself drawn to different vantage points to watch the progression of light across the caldera, and each afternoon Alexander would appear, sometimes by coincidence, sometimes by loose arrangement made the day before. "What happened to your novel today?" she asked on the third afternoon as they sat on a low stone wall outside a small church in Merovigli. 2,000 mediocre words, he replied with a grimace. I'll probably delete half of them tomorrow. That's still 1,000 good words. He laughed. Your optimism is refreshing. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of salt and distant cooking fires. Eleni pulled her light cardigan closer around her shoulders. Why Santorini? Alexander asked suddenly. The real reason. Eleni looked out over the vast expanse of the sea. I found out my partner was having an affair, she said, the words less painful in the open air than they had been in her head. With my friend Sophia, 6 weeks ago. I needed space, different air to breathe. Alexander nodded slowly. I'm sorry. Thank you. She turned to him. Your turn. He was quiet for so long that she thought he might not answer. My wife died, he finally said, his voice soft but steady. Cancer. It's been 18 months. Oh, Alexander, Eleni's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. Thank you, he smiled faintly. Her name was Olivia. She loved Greek mythology. That's how we met, actually, in a comparative literature class. She always wanted to come here. They sat in silence for a while, watching a ferry trace a white line across the blue horizon. Does it get easier? Eleni asked eventually. Different, he said. Not easier exactly, just different. Some days I can remember her without feeling like I'm drowning. Other days, he shrugged. I can't compare my situation to yours, Eleni said. What I lost, pain isn't a competition, Alexander interrupted gently. Betrayal is its own kind of grief. That evening, they had dinner at a small restaurant tucked away from the main tourist paths. The owner, an elderly woman named Despina, seemed to take an immediate liking to them, bringing extra dishes on the house and insisting they tried her homemade wine. My husband and I met on this island 60 years ago, she told them with a wink as she set down a plate of honey drizzled yogurt. There is magic in the Santorini air. After dinner, they walked along the Caldera path. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. Their hands brushed once, twice, and on the third time Alexander's fingers gently entwined with Eleni's. Eleni nodded, unexpected tears pricking her eyes. It had been so long since she'd felt this simple, honest connection, untainted by expectation or history. They stopped at a viewpoint, the lights of Oya twinkling in the distance. I'm leaving in 4 days, Eleni said, reluctantly voicing the thought that had been hovering at the edge of her consciousness. I have 2 weeks left, Alexander replied. The unspoken question hung between them. What was this becoming, and what could it possibly be with such a deadline? We should go to the ruins tomorrow, Eleni suggested, changing the subject. The ancient city of Akrotiri. It's like Pompeii, but older. I'd like that, Alexander said, and when he smiled, Eleni felt something dormant unfurl in her chest, a cautious, fragile hope. Chapter 2 Comprehension Questions. Number 1. What happened to Alexander's wife? A. They divorced. B. She died of cancer. C. She left him for someone else. The correct answer is B. She died of cancer. Number 2. How long is Eleni staying on Santorini? A. 2 weeks. B. 4 more days. C. Indefinitely. The correct answer is B. 4 more days. Number 3. What does Despina say about Santorini? A. It has the best food in Greece. B. It's too expensive for locals. C. There is magic in the air. The correct answer is C. There is magic in the air. Chapter 3 New Horizons. Akrotiri was a revelation, an ancient city frozen in time by the volcanic eruption that had shaped Santorini thousands of years ago. As they walked among the excavated buildings, Alexander and Eleni spoke in hushed tones, their shoulders touching. It's incredible to think that they were so advanced, Eleni marveled, pointing to the remains of a drainage system, indoor plumbing, multi-story buildings in the Bronze Age. And then, one day, everything changed, Alexander said, his voice thoughtful. They had to flee their homes with almost no warning. They survived, though, Eleni pointed out. No human remains have been found here. They had enough warning to escape. A community scattered to the winds, Alexander murmured, and she could see his writer's mind working, drawing parallels to his own story. After the ruins, they drove to the red beach, where the volcanic soils created a startling crimson backdrop to the deep blue sea. They swam in water so clear they could see fish darting between their legs, and afterward dried off under the warm sun, talking about everything and nothing. I've been thinking about Nicholas less and less, Eleni admitted as they shared a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and olives. I thought this trip would be about processing what happened, but instead, Alexander prompted when she trailed off. Instead, I'm just living, being here, now. She looked at him. With you. That night they watched the sunset from the highest point in Emerovigli. As the sky blazed with color, Alexander's arms slipped around Eleni's waist, and she leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his body against hers. I don't want this to end, she whispered as darkness fell. The sunset? This, us, whatever this is. Alexander turned to face her, his expression serious in the twilight. I've been thinking about that too. He led her to a bench overlooking the caldera, now lit only by the stars and the distant lights of cruise ships passing in the night. I haven't felt this way since before Olivia got sick, he said. I didn't think I could. Part of me feels guilty for even. I understand, Eleni said. I feel the same way. Not about Olivia, obviously, but I was so angry with Nicholas, so hurt. I didn't expect to find. She gestured between them. This. What if I came to London? Alexander suggested. Just for a visit. I have friends there I could stay with. We could see if this makes sense beyond Santorini. Eleni's heart quickened. Are you serious? Completely. His hand found hers. I don't know what this is yet, Eleni, but I know I'm not ready to say goodbye in 3 days and never see you again. She leaned forward and kissed him, a gentle, questioning kiss that deepened as he responded. When they broke apart, they were both smiling. Yes, she said simply. Come to London. Their last days on the island took on a bittersweet quality. Each sunset watched with the knowledge that their time together was limited, but also with the promise of continuation. They exchanged phone numbers, social media profiles, email addresses, tethers to connect them across the coming distance. On Eleni's final morning, they had breakfast at a small cafe perched on the cliff edge. The October air was cooler now, carrying the first hints of autumn. I've been writing again, Alexander told her as they lingered over a strong Greek coffee. Really writing, not just forcing words onto the page. I think I've found the heart of my story. What changed? Eleni asked, though she suspected she knew. I remembered why storytelling matters, he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. It's about connection, finding the universal in the person. When the time came for Eleni to leave for the port, they walked together through the narrow streets of Emerovigli. At the taxi stand, Alexander pulled her into an embrace. 2 weeks, he said. I'll be in London in 2 weeks. I'll be waiting, she promised. As her ferry pulled away from the harbor, Eleni stood at the railing, watching Santorini grow smaller in the distance. But unlike her arrival, her gaze wasn't fixed solely on the island. It moved between the receding shoreline and the open sea ahead, between what she'd found and what might be waiting. Her phone buzzed with a message from Alexander. Sunset won't be the same without you. She smiled as she typed her reply. London sunset aren't as famous, but they have their own charm. You'll see. The ferry sailed on, carrying her away from Santorini, but towards something new, a horizon she couldn't yet make out clearly, but one that held promise, and for now, that was enough. Chapter 3 Comprehension Questions. Number 1. What ancient site did Eleni and Alexander visit? A. Pompeii. B. Akrotiri. C. Athens. The correct answer is B. Akrotiri. Number 2. How long after Eleni leaves will Alexander come to London? A. Immediately. B. 2 weeks. C. 1 month. The correct answer is B, 2 weeks. Number 3. What has Alexander been able to do since meeting Eleni? A. Sleep better. B. Write more effectively. C. Plan his next novel. The correct answer is B. Write more effectively. Epilogue. 1 year later. Eleni stood at the railing of the ferry approaching Santorini, the familiar silhouette of the caldera rising before her. This time she wasn't alone. Alexander's arm wrapped around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. It looks exactly the same, he murmured. And completely different, she replied. Their journey hadn't been without challenges. Long distance between London and Boston for 6 months, Alexander's occasional dark days missing Olivia, Eleni's lingering trust issues. But they had navigated those waters together, learning each other's rhythms, building something new, brick by brick. Despina will be thrilled to see us, Alexander said, referring to the taverna owner who had insisted on hosting their dinner tonight. Do you think she knows? Eleni asked, her hand moving to the small velvet box in her pocket, the one containing the vintage silver ring she'd found in an antique shop in London, the one she planned to offer Alexander tonight under a Santorini sunset. Knows what? He asked. Eleni smiled mysteriously, that there really is magic in the Santorini air. As the ferry approached the harbor, Eleni felt a sense of completion. They had returned to where their story began, not to relive the past, but to write the next chapter together. The end.